I stood in my son's beautiful dining room during Thanksgiving dinner. My daughter-in-law, Bryn, laughed loudly with her own mother, Carolyn, pouring expensive wine into crystal glasses. Bryn's voice cut through the chatter. "Danette, the dishes are piling up. You don't mind, do you?" Everyone went silent. Carolyn smirked. My son Tyler looked at his phone, avoiding eye contact. The other guests pretended not to notice. I felt my heart crack. I quietly stood, smoothed my dress, and walked toward the kitchen. But I didn't stop there. I kept walking, grabbed my purse, and left through the front door. My hands trembled on the steering wheel as I drove home. The streetlights blurred through tears I refused to let fall. 3 years. It had been 3 years since I buried my husband, Frank. 3 years of rebuilding my life alone. 3 years of telling myself I still had Tyler, I still had my granddaughters, I still had family. Frank and I had raised Tyler together, poured everything into giving him a good life. When Frank died suddenly of a heart attack at 62, Tyler had held my hand at the funeral and promised I'd never be alone. I believed him. I needed to believe him. After Frank's death, I threw myself into being the best grandmother I could be. Emma and Lily, Tyler's twin daughters, became my reason to get out of bed. Every Wednesday, I picked them up from preschool. We'd go to the park, make cookies, read stories. Those little girls, just 5 years old, were my joy. Their laughter filled the empty spaces Frank left behind. I helped Tyler and Bryn constantly. When they needed a down payment for their new house, I contributed $10,000 from Frank's life insurance. When Bryn's car broke down, I paid for the repairs. When they needed a babysitter, I dropped everything. I never complained. They were my family. My only family. But tonight, something inside me had broken. The image replayed in my mind. Bryn, in her designer dress, laughing with Carolyn. The expensive Cabernet being poured into 2 glasses. Just 2. Bryn had handed one to her mother with a warm smile. "This is the good stuff, Mom. You're going to love it." Carolyn had taken it like a queen accepting tribute. She'd swirled it, sniffed it, made appreciative noises. Then she'd looked at me, still standing awkwardly near the table, and her eyes had gleamed with something cold. That's when Bryn had turned to me. Not with wine, with orders. "Danette, the dishes are piling up. You don't mind, do you?" Not a request. A command. And the way she said it, in front of everyone, her voice had carried that particular tone people use when they're reminding someone of their place. I'd looked at Tyler, my son. Surely he'd say something. Surely he'd notice his wife treating his mother like hired help while treating her own mother like royalty. He'd been staring at his phone. He hadn't even looked up. I pulled into my driveway, the house dark and empty. Frank's truck, which I couldn't bear to sell, sat in the garage gathering dust. I walked inside, hung up my coat, and sat in Frank's recliner. The silence pressed against me. My phone stayed quiet all night. No call from Tyler. No text asking if I got home safely. Nothing. I barely slept. When morning light finally crept through the curtains, I felt exhausted and foolish. Maybe I had overreacted. Maybe I was being too sensitive. Grief does strange things to people. Maybe Tyler was right to focus on his phone. Maybe Bryn was just stressed about hosting. At 9 o'clock, my phone rang. Tyler's name lit up the screen. Relief flooded through me. He'd realized what happened. He was calling to apologize, to check on me. I answered quickly. "Tyler, honey. Mom." His voice was ice. "You embarrassed us. You just left without saying goodbye. Bryn is really upset. Her mother thinks you're rude. You made a scene." The words hit me like a slap. "Tyler, I didn't make a scene." I left quietly. "But your wife treated me like a servant, while she treated Carolyn like an honored guest." "Mom, you're being sensitive. Bryn was just trying to keep things organized. You know she's stressed with the twins. Can you please just apologize to her?" I sat in Frank's chair, phone pressed to my ear, unable to process what I was hearing. Apologize? Tyler, she was disrespectful. She poured wine for her mother and told me to wash dishes. That's not how it happened. You're twisting things. Bryn asked nicely if you could help out. You're the one who stormed off like a child. Her whole family saw it. They're asking if you're okay. If you're having some kind of breakdown. A breakdown? My voice came out small, wounded. Look, Mom, I know losing Dad was hard, but it's been 3 years. You need to move forward. You can't use grief as an excuse for bad behavior. Just apologize to Bryn, make this right. He hung up before I could respond. I sat there, stunned. My son thought I was the problem. My son wanted me to apologize for being humiliated. But he was my only child. And I loved him desperately. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe grief had distorted my perception. Maybe I needed to fix this. That afternoon, I drafted a text message to Bryn. I wrote and rewrote it, trying to find words that would build a bridge without denying my own hurt. Finally, I settled on. Bryn, I'm sorry for leaving abruptly yesterday. I understand hosting Thanksgiving is stressful. I didn't mean to add to your burden. I hope we can move past this. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. 3 days passed. No response. On the 4th day, a text came through. I accept your apology, but I think we need some space. The girls don't need to see family drama. My hands started shaking. The girls, Emma and Lily, my granddaughters. I saw them every Wednesday. It was our special day, had been for 2 years. They called it Grandma Day. They counted down to it. I typed back immediately. Of course. I understand. I'll see the girls Wednesday as usual? The response came fast. Not this week. We'll let you know. Wednesday arrived. I couldn't help myself. At 2:30, the usual pickup time, I drove to their house. I'd just explain in person. Face to face, Bryn would see I wasn't trying to cause drama. I just wanted to see my granddaughters. I pulled up to their beautiful 2-story house, the one I'd helped them buy. I walked up the stone path Frank and I had admired when they first moved in. I rang the doorbell, my heart pounding with hope and dread. Bryn opened the door only a crack. Her face appeared in the narrow opening, her expression hard. Didn't Tyler tell you? We're taking a break from the weekly visits. I need to protect my daughters from negativity. Behind her, I heard Emma's voice. Grandma? I tried to look past Bryn. Emma, sweetie, it's Grandma. Bryn shifted, blocking my view. Danette, you need to leave. This is exactly what I'm talking about. You show up without permission. You don't respect boundaries. I just want to see them for an hour. We always see each other on Wednesdays. Not anymore. Goodbye, Danette. The door closed in my face. I heard Emma crying inside, her small voice calling for me. I heard Bryn's sharp tone telling her to go upstairs. I stood on that porch, the same porch where I'd held those babies when they came home from the hospital, and felt my world collapse. I'd tried to fix things. I'd apologized. I'd been humble, and I'd lost my granddaughters. 2 weeks crawled by. I called Tyler 17 times. He answered twice, both times brief and cold. Can't talk, Mom. I'm at work. Not a good time. The other 15 calls went to voicemail. I sent text messages. Short ones, trying not to sound desperate. Thinking of you and the girls. Hope everyone is well. Would love to see you all soon. His responses, when they came at all, were even shorter. Busy. Maybe later. Talk soon. I sent gifts for Emma and Lily. A craft kit for Emma, who loved to draw. A puzzle for Lily, who could focus on them for hours. I wrapped them carefully, included notes telling them how much Grandma loved them. The packages came back unopened. Return to sender. Thanksgiving turned to December. The first week, Tyler and Bryn always brought the girls to my house to help decorate the Christmas tree. It was tradition. Frank had started it when the girls were babies. We'd make hot chocolate, play Christmas music, and the girls would hang ornaments while Frank lifted them high to reach the top branches. This year, December 1st came and went. No phone call, no visit, no invitation. I decorated the tree alone, crying as I hung the ornaments Emma and Lily had made in preschool. Popsicle stick frames with their photos, salt dough handprints, a foam star with Lily's name in glitter. I felt like I was disappearing, like my family was erasing me. Desperate for someone to talk to, I called Joanne, Frank's sister. We'd always been close. She'd held me at Frank's funeral, promised to always be there. Surely she would understand what was happening. Joanne, it's Danette. Do you have a minute? Oh, Danette. Hi. Her voice sounded strained. How are you? Not great, honestly. I was hoping we could talk about what happened with Tyler and Bryn. Silence. Then, Tyler mentioned there was some trouble at Thanksgiving. He said you had some kind of outburst and left in the middle of dinner. He's worried about you. My stomach dropped. That's not what happened. Bryn treated me like a servant while she waited on her own mother. I didn't have an outburst. I just quietly left. Well, Tyler told me Carolyn was very shaken by your behavior. He said you insulted her and made a scene. Joanne, that's not true. I didn't insult anyone. I didn't make a scene. Danette. Her voice softened, but in a way that felt patronizing. Tyler is really concerned. He thinks you might be struggling since Frank died. Have you thought about talking to someone? A counselor, maybe? Grief can do strange things to our minds. I realized with growing horror that Bryn had gotten to Joanne first. She'd told her version of events, painted me as unstable, and Joanne believed her. I'm not unstable. I'm hurt. There's a difference. Of course. I'm just saying, Tyler loves you. If he's worried, maybe there's a reason. I have to go, but think about what I said, okay? She hung up quickly, like she couldn't wait to get off the phone. I sat there, understanding dawning. Bryn wasn't just cutting me out. She was making sure everyone else cut me out too. She was controlling the narrative, making me look like the problem. That night, I did something I rarely did. I logged into Facebook. I'd created an account years ago but barely used it. Frank had teased me about being technology challenged. I found Bryn's profile. It was public, filled with carefully curated photos of her perfect life. I scrolled back to Thanksgiving Day. There it was. Posted at 8:47 that evening, while I'd been driving home alone and crying. Photos of the dinner table. The turkey, golden and perfect. The decorations, Emma and Lily in matching dresses, smiling. Bryn and Carolyn raising wine glasses, faces glowing with happiness. The caption made me feel sick. So grateful for family who show up with love and joy. No room for negativity in our home. Protecting my babies from toxic energy. Blessed and grateful. Healthy boundaries. 63 likes. 42 comments. I read through them. Each one a small knife wound. Good for you, Bryn. Family should lift you up, not drag you down. Proud of you for putting your girls first. Toxic people don't deserve access to your precious children. Setting boundaries is so important. You're an amazing mother. I recognize the names. Tyler's friends, our neighbors, people from church, people who'd known me for years. All congratulating Bryn for cutting out toxic family members. They were talking about me. They just didn't know it. I scrolled further, hands shaking. A post from 2 days ago stopped my breath. Emma and Lily, in matching Christmas dresses, red velvet with white fur trim. They were sitting on Santa's lap at the mall. Carolyn stood beside them, beaming. The caption read, "My mom surprised the girls with a trip to see Santa. Grandma Carolyn is the best. So thankful for her constant love and support." 112 likes. Carolyn had taken my place. She was becoming their grandmother while I was being erased. But then I noticed something in the background of one photo. The image was taken in Tyler's living room. On the wall behind the Christmas tree, there had always been Frank's military flag, the one that had draped his coffin at the funeral. Tyler had been so proud to display it, his father's service to his country. I zoomed in on the photo. The wall was empty. The flag was gone. My husband's memory, removed from his son's home. I tried to call Tyler. Voicemail. I texted, "Where is your father's flag?" 2 hours later, we redecorated. It's in storage. Storage. Frank's sacrifice. His service. His legacy. In storage. I put my phone down and stared at the Christmas tree in my living room. The one Frank and I had picked out together 15 years ago, now decorated with ornaments from grandchildren who weren't allowed to see me anymore. I'd tried to fix the situation by apologizing, by being humble, by reaching out. Every attempt had made things worse. Now I wasn't just excluded. I was actively being replaced and branded as toxic to anyone who would listen. The isolation wasn't an accident. It was a campaign. December 23rd arrived, cold and gray. I'd spent the previous 2 weeks in a fog, going through motions, the grocery store, the bank, the pharmacy for my blood pressure medication. Simple tasks felt monumental. Every year, since Tyler was 6 years old, I hosted Christmas Eve dinner. It was our tradition. Frank would carve the prime rib. I'd make his mother's recipe for scalloped potatoes. Tyler would tell stories about past Christmases. After Frank died, the tradition had become even more precious. A way to keep his memory alive, to hold the family together. I hadn't received an invitation to anyone else's celebration. So I assumed, hoped, prayed that Christmas Eve would happen as always. Surely they wouldn't take that from me too. I called Tyler. For once, he answered on the second ring. Tyler, honey. About Christmas Eve dinner. What time should I expect you? Silence. Then, Mom, we're not doing Christmas at your house this year. My chest tightened. What do you mean? We're going to Carolyn's house. She invited us to celebrate with her family. It'll be good for the girls to have a drama-free holiday. Drama-free. I repeated the words, trying to understand. Tyler, I'm your mother. It's Christmas. I know. But after everything that's happened, Bryn thinks it's best if we spend the holiday with her family. They're more stable right now. More stable. As if I was falling apart. Unstable. Unreliable. Can I at least see the girls on Christmas morning? Just for an hour? Mom, I don't think that's a good idea. Let's just take some time. Maybe after the new year we can figure things out. He hung up. I would spend Christmas alone. My first Christmas without Frank, now without Tyler, without Emma and Lily. Alone in the house where we'd celebrated 40 Christmases together, where Tyler had opened presents as a little boy, where Frank had proposed to me 42 years ago on Christmas Eve. The next day, Christmas Eve, I tried to cook dinner anyway. Maybe the smell of prime rib, the ritual of preparation, would make me feel less alone. But standing in the kitchen, Frank's apron hanging on its hook, I couldn't do it. I made a sandwich and ate it standing at the counter. That night, I lay in bed, listening to the silence. No grandchildren's laughter, no Tyler's voice, no Frank's hand holding mine. Christmas morning, I woke at 5. I'd barely slept. I'd wrapped presents for Emma and Lily weeks ago. They sat under my tree, colorful and hopeful. I couldn't bear to look at them unopened. I made a decision. I would go to Tyler's house, just to drop off the presents, just to see the girls for 5 minutes on Christmas morning. Surely Bryn couldn't refuse that. It was Christmas, a time for family, for forgiveness, for love. I loaded the presents into my car and drove through empty streets. Most of the houses I passed glowed with lights, families inside opening gifts, drinking coffee, being together. Tyler's house was lit up too. I could see the Christmas tree through the front window. I parked, gathered the presents, walked up the path with my heart hammering. I knocked softly. 7 in the morning on Christmas. Not too early, but early enough that they'd be awake, the girls eager to see what Santa brought. I heard footsteps. The door opened. Bryn stood there in her bathrobe, her face a mask of fury. What are you doing here? Merry Christmas, Bryn. I brought presents for the girls. I thought I could just give them to Emma and Lily, wish them Merry Christmas, and go. You can't just show up unannounced. This is harassment, Danette. Harassment? I'm their grandmother. It's Christmas morning. Tyler appeared behind Bryn. His hair was messy, eyes tired. Mom, You need to leave. Tyler, please. I miss my granddaughters. I miss you. Can't we just talk? It's Christmas. Bryn's voice turned icy. If you don't leave right now, I'm calling the police. This is our property. You're trespassing. I looked at my son. The boy I'd rocked when he had nightmares. The teenager I'd stayed up with when he studied for exams. The young man who'd cried at his father's funeral and told me we'd always have each other. He wouldn't meet my eyes. I set the presents down on the porch. Merry Christmas, I whispered. I walked back to my car. Behind me, I heard the door close with finality. I drove home, my vision blurred with tears. I made it inside, closed the door, and collapsed. That's when the pain started. Sharp, radiating from my chest down my left arm. My jaw ached. My breath came in short gasps. The room spun. I knew what this was. Frank had described it before his heart attack. This crushing, terrifying pain. I managed to reach my phone, dial 911. My voice shook as I gave my address. Chest pain. I think it's my heart. The operator stayed on the line, her voice calm and steady, until I heard sirens. The paramedics were efficient, professional. They loaded me into the ambulance, hooked me to monitors, asked questions I barely registered. At the hospital, doctors rushed around. Tests, EKGs, blood work. A cardiologist with kind eyes examined me. Mrs. Morrison, you've had a severe angina attack. Stress-induced. Your heart is under significant strain. We need to keep you overnight for observation. You're at high risk for a more serious cardiac event. Will I be okay? With proper care, yes. But you need to reduce stress. You need support. Family. Do you have someone we can call? I gave them Tyler's number. My emergency contact. An hour later, a nurse came in looking uncomfortable. Mrs. Morrison, we tried calling your son. The phone rang once and went to voicemail. We left a message. He'd blocked my number. Even the hospital couldn't reach him. I spent Christmas night in the cardiac ward, hooked to machines that beeped and whirred. A nurse brought me turkey and mashed potatoes from the cafeteria. Hospital Christmas dinner. The doctor came by late that evening. Mrs. Morrison, you need to understand. Another attack like this, and you might not be so lucky. Whatever is causing you this level of stress, you need to address it. For your health, for your life. I nodded, not trusting my voice. I'd tried to reach out, to reconcile, to show love. And it had nearly killed me. Literally, things had gotten exponentially worse. I was now not just emotionally isolated, but physically endangered, with a heart condition triggered by the very family I was trying to reconnect with. And my own son had blocked me so completely that even a hospital couldn't reach him in an emergency. I spent 3 weeks recovering at home after the hospital released me. The doctors sent me home with a bag full of medications, beta blockers, blood thinners, nitrates for chest pain, pills I had to take 3 times a day, reminders of how close I'd come to joining Frank. My neighbor, Diane, a widow in her 70s, checked on me daily. She brought soup, made sure I took my medications, sat with me when the loneliness felt crushing. She was my only visitor. You need to take care of yourself, she'd say, patting my hand. Family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's the people who show up. I thought about that constantly. Tyler hadn't shown up. Not at the hospital, not after. He still didn't know I'd had a cardiac event on Christmas Day. Or maybe he did know and didn't care. On January 15th, 3 weeks after Christmas, I found a certified letter in my mailbox. Official looking. Legal letterhead. I signed for it with shaking hands. Inside, legal documents. Pages of dense text that I struggled to understand. At the top, petition for restraining order. I read it twice, 3 times, unable to believe what I was seeing. Bryn had filed for a restraining order against me. The petition claimed I'd been harassing them since Thanksgiving. It listed dates, times, instances of contact. Phone calls, described as obsessive. Text messages called manipulative. My Christmas morning visit termed trespassing, despite being asked to stay away. It described me as mentally unstable following the death of her spouse, and claimed I was causing emotional distress to the family. The hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks away. I sat at my kitchen table, Frank's empty chair across from me, and realized the full scope of what was happening. If this restraining order went through, I would be legally prohibited from going near my son, my daughter-in-law, my granddaughters. I couldn't go to their house, their school, anywhere they might be. I would be legally erased from their lives. I called Paul Henderson, a lawyer I'd met once at a church function. He agreed to see me that afternoon. Paul's office was modest but tidy. He was in his 50s, with gray at his temples and intelligent eyes. He read through the petition carefully while I sat across from him, my hands twisted together. "Mrs. Morrison, this is serious. Do they have evidence of the behavior they're claiming?" I called my son multiple times after they cut me off. I sent text messages. I visited their house once, on Christmas morning, to bring presents for my granddaughters. That's all. Once? They're claiming you showed up repeatedly, despite being warned to stay away. That's not true. I went once. Christmas morning. Before that, I went on a Wednesday to pick up the girls like I'd done for 2 years. They never officially told me to stop until I showed up. Paul made notes. "Tell me about the incident that started all this." "Thanksgiving," I explained. "The wine for Carolyn, the dish orders for me, how I quietly left." Paul listened, his expression growing more concerned. "Who witnessed this?" "Everyone at dinner. But they were all Bryn's family or friends. She told them I had an outburst and stormed out. That's not what happened, but that's what they believe." "That's going to be a problem, Mrs. Morrison. In these hearings, it often comes down to he said, she said. And if multiple people are willing to testify to her version of events, they're lying. I'm not crazy. I'm not harassing anyone. I just want to see my grandchildren." Paul set down his pen. "I believe you. But we need to build a strong case. The retainer for this kind of work is $3,000. Can you manage that?" $3,000. A significant chunk of my savings. But what choice did I have? "Yes, I'll pay it." Over the next few days, I worked with Paul to prepare. I printed out every text message I'd sent Tyler and Bryn. I wrote down dates and times of phone calls. I documented everything. Then I remembered something. Tyler was the executor of Frank's estate. Frank had left most everything to me, but he'd set up a trust fund specifically for the twins' college education. $200,000, invested carefully. It was meant to ensure Emma and Lily could go to any school they wanted without debt. Tyler managed the trust. I was co-trustee, but had never looked at the statements closely. I trusted my son, but something nagged at me. Their financial situation. The beautiful new house they'd bought 18 months ago. The one they shouldn't have been able to afford on Tyler's salary. Bryn's expensive clothes. The renovations I'd noticed. I logged into the trust account online. It took 3 tries to remember the password. When the account balance loaded, my heart stopped. $732. $200,000. Gone. I called the bank, my voice shaking so badly the representative asked if I was okay. They sent me transaction records, pages and pages of withdrawals over the past 18 months. $10,000. Noted as home renovation. $20,000. Investment opportunity. $15,000. Business expense. $35,000. Emergency medical. On and on. Tyler had systematically drained his daughter's college fund. I thought back. 18 months ago, that's when they'd bought the house. That's when their lifestyle had suddenly improved. New furniture, new cars, expensive dinners Bryn posted on social media. They'd used Emma and Lily's future to fund their present. I called Paul. "I need to see you. Now. It's urgent." In his office an hour later, I showed him the statements. He studied them, his expression growing darker. "This is misappropriation of trust funds. Tyler had a fiduciary duty to preserve this money for his daughters. Using it for personal expenses is a crime. What can I do? You can report it. As co-trustee, you have the authority to petition for an audit and hold him accountable. But Mrs. Morrison, you need to understand what this means. If you report him, he could face criminal charges, and any chance of reconciliation. D's completely, I finished. Paul nodded. If you do this, you're choosing to protect your granddaughter's future over your relationship with your son. It's a choice no mother should have to make. I sat in that office, staring at the numbers that represented my son's betrayal. $200,000. Frank's legacy for his granddaughters. Stolen by the son we'd raised, to be honest, to be honorable. Tyler had become someone I didn't recognize. Someone who would steal from his own children. Someone who would let his wife file a restraining order against his mother rather than admit what he'd done. I thought about Emma and Lily, 5 years old. They'd want to go to college someday. They'd apply, get accepted, and find out there was no money, because their father had taken it. If I report this, will the money be restored? The court would order him to repay it. Whether he can or will is another question. But at least it would be documented, protected. I made my decision. File the petition. Audit the trust. I don't care what it costs me with Tyler. Those girls deserve their future. Paul nodded slowly. I'll file tomorrow. But Mrs. Morrison, you need to prepare yourself. This is going to get much, much worse before it gets better. Tyler will fight this. And when people feel cornered, they lash out. I left Paul's office with the weight of my decision crushing my chest. The medication in my purse felt heavier. My heart, already damaged, felt like it might simply stop. I'd tried to fight the restraining order by gathering evidence. Instead, I'd discovered my son was a thief, and now I had to choose between protecting my relationship with him or protecting his daughter's future. The situation had gone from bad to catastrophic. The restraining order hearing was scheduled for February 8th. Paul filed the trust audit petition on January 20th. The timing couldn't have been worse, or maybe it couldn't have been better. I wasn't sure anymore. The courthouse was gray and imposing. I sat in the hallway outside the courtroom with Paul, watching people stream by. Lawyers in expensive suits. Families fractured by conflict. I never imagined I'd be one of them. Bryn arrived with her lawyer, a sharp woman in her 40s, named Christina Marsh. Tyler walked beside Bryn, his face pale and tense. He glanced at me once. His eyes were hard. Inside the courtroom, we took our seats. The judge, a woman in her 60s named Judge Patricia Klein, reviewed the papers in front of her. This is a petition for a restraining order filed by Bryn Morrison against Danette Morrison. We also have a related matter regarding a trust fund audit. We'll address the restraining order first. Miss Marsh, call your first witness. Bryn took the stand. She looked beautiful, vulnerable. She'd chosen her outfit carefully. A modest blue dress, minimal makeup, her wedding ring prominent. Christina Marsh walked her through a series of questions. Bryn's answers were smooth, rehearsed, devastating. Can you describe the incident on Thanksgiving that began this pattern of behavior? We'd invited Danette to dinner. We wanted to include her, to make her feel loved after her husband's death. During dinner, I asked if she could help with dishes. I was overwhelmed with hosting. I thought she'd understand. Instead, she became angry. She said something cruel to my mother, something about how she wasn't welcome in our home. Then she stormed out without saying goodbye. In front of my children, the twins were crying, asking why Grandma left. I gripped Paul's arm. That wasn't what happened. The twins hadn't even been in the room. They'd been playing in the basement, Christina continued. What happened after that night? She started calling constantly. Tyler's phone, my phone, 10, 15 times a day. She'd leave voicemails saying we were poisoning the children against her. She'd text at all hours. When we asked for space, she showed up at our house uninvited. How many times did she show up? 3 times. Once, she waited outside the girls' preschool, watching them. The teacher had to ask her to leave. I started to stand. Paul put a hand on my arm. Not yet. he whispered. Did you ever feel threatened? Yes. On Christmas morning, she came to our house at 7 in the morning. We were in our pajamas. The girls were opening presents. She pounded on the door, demanding to be let in. When I refused, she started yelling about how we'd stolen her family. My daughters heard everything. They were terrified. I hadn't pounded. I'd knocked softly. I hadn't yelled. I'd whispered. But 6 people in that courtroom believed her. Christina showed the judge Bryn's log, a detailed record of every call, every text, every alleged visit. It painted a picture of an obsessed, unstable woman who couldn't accept boundaries. The judge studied it carefully. Then Christina played her final card. The truth is, Your Honor, we're concerned about Danette's mental health. She lost her husband 3 years ago and hasn't processed her grief properly. She's fixated on my client's family as a replacement for what she lost. We don't want to hurt her. We want her to get help. But we need to protect our children while she does. It was brilliant. Cruel, but brilliant. She'd framed me as a tragic figure, damaged by grief, pitiable but dangerous. Judge Klein turned to Paul. Mr. Henderson, your witness. I took the stand. My legs shook. Paul had prepared me, but nothing could prepare me for the feeling of sitting there, defending my sanity, my character, my love for my family. Paul walked me through the truth. The real story of Thanksgiving. How I'd left quietly, how I'd tried to apologize, how every attempt to reconcile had been rejected. Mrs. Morrison, how many times did you actually visit your son's home uninvited? Once. On Christmas morning, I brought presents for my granddaughters. I knocked softly. When Bryn told me to leave, I left. I didn't yell. I didn't pound on the door. I set the presents on the porch and drove home. And the alleged incident at the preschool? I never went to their preschool. Not once. I don't even know which preschool they attend. Bryn changed schools after Thanksgiving and didn't tell me where. Paul showed the judge my text messages. They were measured, careful, not obsessive. Just a mother trying to reach her son. But I could see doubt in the judge's eyes. It was my word against Bryn's. And Bryn had witnesses. Then Judge Klein asked the question I'd been dreading. Mr. Morrison, you've been silent through all this. You're the son and the husband. What do you have to say? Tyler stood, walked to the witness stand, was sworn in. I looked at him, really looked at him. This was my child, the baby I'd nursed, the toddler who'd clung to my leg on his first day of kindergarten, the teenager who'd told me I was his hero. Your Honor, I love my mother. His voice cracked slightly. But she hasn't been herself since my dad died. She's become demanding, intrusive. When we try to set boundaries, she sees it as rejection. She calls at all hours. She shows up unannounced. We've tried to be patient, but it's affecting our daughters. They're confused. They're scared. Are you afraid of your mother, Mr. Morrison? Tyler hesitated. Then, I'm afraid of what she might do in her current state of mind. I'm worried about her, and I'm worried about my daughters being exposed to her instability. The courtroom went silent. My own son had just called me unstable in open court. Judge Klein looked at the papers, at Bryn's log, at my text messages. She looked at me, sitting there with my gray hair and my widow's grief and my desperate love for a family that had turned on me. I'm granting a temporary restraining order for 6 months. Mrs. Morrison, you are to stay 500 feet away from Mr. and Mrs. Morrison and their children. No contact of any kind. We'll have a full hearing in 6 months to determine if this should be made permanent. Court dismissed. The gavel fell. I sat there, stunned. Paul gathered his papers. People filed out. I'd lost. I was legally forbidden from seeing my granddaughters, from talking to my son, from going anywhere near them. Outside the courthouse, Tyler walked quickly to his car. I called after him, desperate. Tyler, wait, please. He stopped. Turned. Bryn grabbed his arm, but he shook her off. I approached, staying beyond 500 feet as ordered. Tyler, I know about the trust fund. His face went white. I saw the bank statements. I know what you did with the girl's college money. Bryn stepped forward. What is she talking about? Tyler grabbed her arm. She's making things up. Let's go. $200,000, Tyler. Your daughter's future. You took it. Bryn pulled away from him. Tyler, what is she saying? Nothing. She's lying. Let's go. Now. They hurried to their car. But I'd seen Bryn's face. The confusion. The first seed of doubt. Tyler didn't know that I'd filed for the audit yet. That news would come later. But he knew I knew. And that was dangerous for him. That night, my phone rang, Tyler's number. I answered immediately. If you tell anyone about the trust fund, I'll make sure you never see Emma and Lily again. Ever. I'll say you threatened us. I'll say you're dangerous. They'll believe me. You just saw that they'll believe me about anything. His voice shook, whether with fear or rage. I couldn't tell. Tyler, those girls deserve that money. Your father worked his whole life to provide for them. Dad's dead. And you're about to be dead to us too if you don't keep your mouth shut. The audit petition, Mom. Withdraw it. Or you'll regret it. He'd already found out about the audit. Of course he had. Paul said the court would notify him. I can't do that. Then you're making a choice, me or them. You can't have both. He hung up. I sat in my kitchen, the restraining order papers on the table, my heart medication beside them, and realized I'd crossed a line I couldn't uncross. I'd tried to fight legally, and I'd been branded unstable and legally barred from my family. I'd tried to expose the truth about the money, and now my son was threatening me into silence. The situation had reached its absolute worst point. I was isolated, legally restrained, facing threats, and had no way forward that didn't involve destroying my son or abandoning my principles. Things couldn't get worse. Except they could. And they would. February dragged into March. I lived in a strange limbo. Legally forbidden from contact with my family. Morally obligated to pursue the trust fund audit. Emotionally devastated. I took my heart medication religiously. Every morning, every evening. Diane checked on me daily. She was the only reason I got out of bed. The audit was proceeding. Paul kept me updated. A forensic accountant had been appointed by the court. She was examining every transaction, every withdrawal, documenting where Frank's money had gone. Tyler couldn't stop it. As co-trustee, I had the legal right, and the court took misappropriation of children's funds seriously. Paul warned me Tyler was fighting it. He'd hired an expensive lawyer, claimed the withdrawals were legitimate, related to investments that would eventually benefit the girls. But he couldn't produce documentation, because there was none. I spent my days alone. I couldn't go near the twins' school. I couldn't drive down Tyler's street. The restraining order meant I lived in an invisible prison, bars drawn around places my family might be. One night in mid-March, unable to sleep, I broke. I needed to see them, just see them, not talk to them, not approach, just know they were okay. I drove to Emma and Lily's school, Liberty Elementary. I'd looked it up online after the hearing, the school where I'd never been, despite Bryn's claim that I'd shown up there harassing them. I parked across the street at 3 p.m. Dismissal time. Far enough away to not violate the restraining order, but close enough to see. Cars lined up. Parents waited. And then I saw them. Carolyn pulled up in her Mercedes. She looked annoyed, talking on her phone. A teacher walked out with Emma and Lily. The girls climbed into the back seat. Carolyn barely looked at them. She was still on her phone, laughing at something the person on the other end said. But that wasn't what made my heart break. It was the girls themselves. Emma wore the same dress she'd worn the day before. I could tell because it had a small stain on the collar. Her hair was uncombed, frizzy, pulled into a messy ponytail. Lily looked thin. Her coat was too small, sleeves riding up her arms. They looked neglected. Not abused, not in danger, but not loved. Not cared for properly. Where were Tyler and Bryn? I waited until Carolyn drove away, then I went home. That night, I did something risky. I created a fake Facebook profile. Just a generic name. Random photo from the internet. I sent friend requests to a few random people to make it look real. Then I looked at Bryn's page. Post after post showed the same pattern. Bryn at expensive restaurants. Bryn at the spa. Bryn shopping. Always with Carolyn. Never with the twins. Recent posts talked about self-care and me time, and grateful mom watches the girls so I can recharge. Carolyn wasn't just helping occasionally. She was essentially raising Emma and Lily while Bryn lived like she had no children. And Tyler? I searched for his profile. Private, but I could see his recent activity and comments on Bryn's posts. He was working late constantly. Every post about dinner out, he'd comment, "Wish I could be there, stuck at the office." My son and daughter-in-law had checked out of parenting. They'd replaced me with Carolyn, but they'd also replaced themselves. Those little girls, the ones I'd rocked and loved and babysat every Wednesday, were being raised by a woman who saw them as an obligation. That's when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. "Mrs. Morrison? This is Angela Hart. I'm a teacher at Liberty Elementary. Emma and Lily are in my class." My heart stopped. Is something wrong? Are they okay? Can I come by? I need to talk to you in person. It's important. 30 minutes later, Angela sat in my living room. She was in her 30s, professional but warm. She looked uncomfortable. "Mrs. Morrison, I probably shouldn't be here. I could lose my job. But I'm worried about Emma and Lily." "What's wrong? Tell me." "They've changed over the past few months. They used to be vibrant, happy girls. They'd talk about their grandma Danette constantly. Stories about baking cookies, going to the park, reading books. You were clearly a huge part of their lives." Tears filled my eyes. They're my world. 2 months ago, everything shifted. They stopped mentioning you. When I asked about their grandmother, they'd say Grandma Carolyn, but their voices would get flat. Last week, Emma was crying in the bathroom. I found her and asked what was wrong. She said she missed you. She said her mom told her you didn't want to see them anymore, that you'd moved far away. That's not true. There's a restraining order. I'm not allowed to see them. Angela nodded. I did some research. I hope you don't mind. I found out about the restraining order. And I also discovered something else. Tyler Morrison filed for bankruptcy 3 weeks ago. The room spun. Bankruptcy? Chapter 7. It's public record. And there's more. I have a friend who works at the county clerk's office. She pulled the case file for me. Tyler and Bryn are deeply in debt. Credit cards, personal loans, over $70,000. The trust fund, the stolen money. It was gone. Not invested. Not saved. Spent. And they'd still managed to bury themselves in debt. There's one more thing. I've noticed Mrs. Green, Carolyn, picking up the girls regularly. She seems disconnected. She's always on her phone. The girls have to remind her to help with their backpacks. Last week, Lily told me she was hungry, that Grandma Carolyn forgot to pack her lunch. Why are you telling me this? Because those girls need you. I can't testify or do anything official without proof of neglect, and what I'm seeing isn't quite at that level. But they're not thriving. They're sad. And I thought you should know what's really happening. After Angela left, I sat in the dark, pieces clicking together. Tyler had stolen his daughter's college fund to pay debts and fund a lifestyle he couldn't afford. When that ran out, he'd filed bankruptcy. He and Bryn had essentially abandoned parenting to Carolyn, who didn't really want the job. And Emma and Lily were casualties, told their grandmother didn't love them anymore. The restraining order hearing had branded me unstable. The trust fund audit would expose Tyler as a thief. Everything had escalated to a point where the truth had to come out, but the cost would be devastating. For the first time in months, something shifted inside me. I'd been defensive, reactive, trying to fix things, trying to smooth things over. Every attempt had made things worse. I needed to stop defending. I needed to start fighting. Really fighting. I called Paul. The trust fund audit. How long until it's complete? 2 weeks. The accountant is finishing her report. And when it's done, the court will order Tyler to repay the money? Yes. Within 90 days or face criminal charges. He can't repay it. He's bankrupt. I know. I saw the filing. Then this goes to criminal court. Most likely. I took a breath. Proceed with everything. I want the full audit. I want a hearing on the restraining order. I want the truth exposed. All of it. Mrs. Morrison, this means your son will likely face criminal charges. You understand that? I understand that my granddaughters deserve better than parents who steal from them and then abandon them. I understand that the truth matters. And I understand that I've spent 6 months being painted as the villain when I'm the only one trying to protect those girls. All right. We go to war then. We go to war. I hung up and looked at Frank's photo on the mantel. I'm going to fix this, Frank. I promise. No matter what it costs. The situation had reached its absolute breaking point. I was isolated, legally barred from my family, and about to expose my son as a criminal. But for the first time since Thanksgiving, I felt something other than despair. I felt determined. And determination, I was about to learn, was more powerful than manipulation. The forensic accountant's report came back on April 2nd. 193 pages of detailed analysis. The conclusion was damning. Tyler had systematically misappropriated trust funds meant for his daughter's education. $200,000 drained over 18 months for personal use. The report listed every transaction: credit card payments, mortgage payments, car loans, home renovations, vacations. Not $1 had gone toward anything that could remotely benefit Emma and Lily. The court scheduled a hearing for April 15th. The same day as the 6-month review for the restraining order. Paul had been preparing carefully. We had the accountant's report. We had Angela's statement, which she'd agreed to provide after all, documenting changes in the girl's behavior. We had bank statements, bankruptcy filings, evidence of a crumbling financial house of cards. The morning of the hearing, I dressed carefully. Not to impress, but to feel strong. Frank's wedding ring on a chain around my neck. My mother's pearls. Armor made of memories. The courtroom was the same as before, Judge Klein presiding. But this time, the atmosphere was different. Tyler and Bryn arrived separately. He looked haggard, 20 pounds thinner. She looked furious. They barely spoke to each other. The restraining order came first. Bryn's lawyer, Christina Marsh, argued for making it permanent. She brought up the same claims: harassment, instability, danger to the children. But Paul was ready. He presented evidence that I'd had 0 contact with the family in 6 months. No calls, no texts, no drive-bys. I'd followed the order perfectly. Then he brought up the trust fund. Your Honor, the reason Mrs. Morrison has sought contact with her family isn't obsession or instability. It's because she discovered her son had stolen $200,000 from his own daughters, and she was trying to protect them. Christina objected. Tyler's lawyer, a man named Richard Stern, stood. Your Honor, the trust fund matter is separate from the restraining order. Actually, Judge Klein said, I don't think it is. The restraining order was granted based on claims that Mrs. Morrison was unstable and potentially dangerous. But if her behavior was motivated by discovering theft, that changes the context considerably. I'm going to hear testimony on both matters. Mr. Morrison, take the stand. Tyler walked to the witness stand, moving like a man going to his execution. Paul was direct. Mr. Morrison, did you make withdrawals from your daughter's trust fund over the past 18 months? Yes. Were those withdrawals for the benefit of your daughters? They were for family expenses. The family includes my daughters. Mr. Morrison, did you use trust funds to pay your mortgage? Yes. To pay credit card debt? Yes. To fund a vacation to Hawaii? Tyler's jaw clenched. Yes. That's theft, Mr. Morrison. I plan to pay it back. How? You filed for bankruptcy 3 weeks ago. You're $70,000 in debt beyond the trust fund. How, exactly, did you plan to restore $200,000 to your daughters? Tyler had no answer. Then Paul did something I hadn't expected. "Your Honor, I'd like to call Bryn Morrison to the stand." Bryn looked shocked. So did Christina Marsh. But Judge Klein nodded. Bryn took the stand, defiant at first. But Paul was gentle, almost sympathetic. "Mrs. Morrison, when did you learn about the trust fund?" "I don't see how that's relevant. Please answer the question." Bryn glanced at Tyler. "A few weeks ago. Not 18 months ago when the withdrawals started?" "No. So your husband stole from your daughters without telling you?" "He didn't steal. He was providing for his family. By draining his daughter's college fund while running up massive debt?" "Mrs. Morrison, you've been living quite well for the past 18 months. Designer clothes, expensive restaurants, spa treatments. Your social media shows a very luxurious lifestyle. Did you ask where the money was coming from?" Bryn's face flushed. "Tyler said he got bonuses at work, but he didn't. He was taking money meant for Emma and Lily's education. And you believed him because it was convenient, because it funded the life you wanted. That's not fair. What's not fair is two little girls losing their future because their parents wanted designer handbags and Hawaii vacations," Christina objected. Judge Klein sustained it. But the damage was done. Paul presented Angela's testimony next. The teacher described the changes in Emma and Lily. Their sadness, their longing for me, how they'd been told I'd abandon them. The girls are being told their grandmother doesn't love them. They're being raised primarily by Mrs. Morrison's mother, who seems overwhelmed and disconnected. Meanwhile, the girls' parents are absent, focused on maintaining appearances while their finances collapse. Finally, Paul called me. I took the stand, my heart racing. "Mrs. Morrison, why did you leave Thanksgiving dinner last November?" I told the truth. The whole truth. The wine for Carolyn, the dish orders for me, the systematic exclusion and humiliation. How I'd left quietly, not dramatically. How I'd tried to apologize and been cut off more severely each time. And when you discovered the trust fund had been drained, I knew I had to act. Not for me. For Emma and Lily. They deserve their future. I couldn't let my son steal that from them, even if it meant losing him. That's quite a sacrifice. He's already lost. The son I raised wouldn't do this. But those little girls, they still have a chance. Someone has to protect them. Judge Klein listened to everything. Then she announced a recess while she reviewed the materials. During the break, I saw Bryn corner Tyler in the hallway. Even from a distance, I could see her fury. She was yelling, crying. He was trying to calm her down. It wasn't working. Then something unexpected happened. Bryn walked over to me. Christina tried to stop her, but Bryn shook her off. "Can we talk? Please?" Paul started to object, but I nodded. We walked to a quiet corner. Bryn's mascara was smudged. Her perfect facade had cracked. "I didn't know," she whispered. "About the money. I swear I didn't know." "I believe you. My mother planned all of this. After Frank died, she saw an opportunity. She told me you'd try to control our family, that you'd take over with the girls. She said I needed to establish boundaries, to make sure you knew your place. The Thanksgiving dinner, the way I treated you, that was her idea." "Why?" "She wanted to be the primary grandmother. She wanted Emma and Lily to need her, not you. And she convinced Tyler that you had money, that if we isolated you, you'd eventually give it to us out of desperation." Tyler was drowning in debt. He wanted to believe her. The pieces fell into place. Carolyn had manipulated everything. She'd exploited Tyler's financial desperation, Bryn's insecurity, my vulnerability as a widow. "Bryn, why are you telling me this?" "Because I've been stupid. I chose the wrong mother. I miss you. The girls miss you. And I'm terrified of what I've let happen to my family." Before I could respond, the bailiff called us back. Judge Klein had made her decisions. "I'm dismissing the restraining order immediately. The evidence shows Mrs. Morrison has been nothing but compliant for 6 months, and the original claims against her were exaggerated at best. Furthermore, Mrs. Morrison's concerns about her son's misappropriation of trust funds were legitimate and motivated by protection of her grandchildren, not instability. Tyler's face went pale. As for the trust fund, I'm ordering Mr. Morrison to restore the full amount of $200,000 within 90 days. If he cannot, this matter will be referred to the district attorney for criminal prosecution. Additionally, I'm ordering family counseling for all parties. Mr. Morrison, your relationship with your mother is clearly broken, and your daughters are suffering for it. You will attend therapy or face contempt charges. The gavel fell. We filed out of the courtroom. Tyler tried to approach me, but I walked past him. Not out of anger, but because I was done. Done pleading. Done explaining. Done accepting crumbs of affection. Outside, Bryn caught up to me again. "Danette, please, can we talk? Really talk?" We sat on a bench in the courthouse plaza. Spring sunshine warmed the concrete. People walked by, living their normal lives, unaware of the family drama that had just unfolded inside. "I don't know how to fix this," Bryn said. "I've hurt you so badly. I've hurt my daughters. I've destroyed my marriage. My mother will never forgive me for telling the truth." "Good. She doesn't deserve forgiveness. Will you? Will you ever forgive me?" I looked at this woman who'd tormented me, excluded me, tried to erase me, but I also saw someone who'd been manipulated. Someone who'd made terrible choices but was trying to face them. I don't know yet, but I'm willing to try. For Emma and Lily, thank you. That's more than I deserve. Over the following weeks, the truth continued to emerge. Tyler entered therapy, facing his financial disasters and his role in the family's destruction. With Paul's help, they structured a repayment plan for the trust fund. Tyler would have to sell the house, downsize dramatically, work a second job. It would take 10 years, but Emma and Lily would get their money back. Carolyn, true to form, tried to maintain control. She called Bryn repeatedly, insisting she'd been trying to help, that I'd poisoned everyone against her. But Bryn, for the first time, stood firm. "You used my family, Mom. You used my children. I don't want to see you until you can admit what you did." Carolyn stopped calling. I never saw her again. Last I heard, she'd moved to Florida, far from the wreckage of her manipulations. 3 months after the hearing, I stood in my kitchen on a Sunday afternoon. Tyler, Bryn, Emma, and Lily were coming for dinner. Our first meal together since Thanksgiving. I'd made pot roast, Frank's favorite. The same recipe I'd cooked for 40 years. The house smelled like home. When they arrived, Emma and Lily burst through the door. "Grandma!" They ran to me, and I held them tight, breathing in their little girl smell of shampoo and sunshine. "I missed you so much," Emma whispered. "I missed you too, sweetheart. More than you can imagine." Tyler stood in the doorway, uncertain. He looked smaller somehow. The arrogance, the dismissiveness, gone, replaced by shame and regret. "Mom," he started. I held up my hand. "We'll talk, but not today. Today we're just going to be a family again, okay?" He nodded, tears in his eyes. At dinner, we sat around the table Frank had built 30 years ago. I served the pot roast. Bryn helped the girls cut their meat. Tyler poured water for everyone. Halfway through the meal, Bryn raised her glass. "To Danette. To family. To truth. Thank you for not giving up on us, even when we gave up on you." We toasted. Emma asked if she could stay over Friday night like old times. Lily wanted to bake cookies tomorrow. Normal requests. Beautiful requests. After dinner, after everyone left, I sat in Frank's chair and looked at the new photo on the mantel. Me and the girls at the park, taken the previous week. Real smiles, built on truth. I thought about the journey. 9 months from that Thanksgiving dinner to this Sunday. 9 months of pain, isolation, fear, legal battles. 9 months of being painted as unstable, toxic, dangerous. But I'd learned something crucial. Silence in the face of injustice isn't peace. It's surrender. True family isn't about who can manipulate best. It's about who has the courage to speak truth, even when it costs everything. Sometimes the only way to save the people you love is to fight them first. To stand up, walk away, refuse to accept crumbs, and demand truth. I'd walked away from that Thanksgiving dinner, and eventually, I'd come back. But on my own terms, with dignity, with truth, with the kind of love that protects rather than enables. "We made it, Frank," I whispered to his photo. "It was hard, but we made it." The next Wednesday, I picked up Emma and Lily from school. Our regular day together, restored. As we drove to the park, Emma said from the back seat, "Grandma, did you really leave in the middle of dinner that one time?" "I did." "Why?" "Because sometimes, sweetheart, walking away is the first step toward coming back. But you have to come back on your own terms, with truth and dignity." "What does that mean?" "It means standing up for yourself. It means protecting people you love, even from themselves. It means not accepting cruelty just because it comes from family." Lily piped up, "Daddy says you saved us." "No, honey. I just made sure you had what your Grandpa Frank wanted you to have. Your future, your choices, your freedom." At the park, I pushed them on swings. Their laughter filled the spring air. Other grandmothers nodded at me, recognizing the universal joy of grandchildren. I'd fought for this. I'd risked everything for this moment, these girls, this love, and I'd won. Not just the legal battles, not just the right to see my grandchildren. I'd won something more important. I'd won my dignity, my truth, my life. That Thanksgiving night, when I walked out that door, I'd been broken, hurt, confused. I'd spent months getting worse before getting better, falling deeper before climbing out. But I'd climbed out. With truth, courage, and the kind of love that doesn't accept anything less than what's right. The silence that night, when I walked away, had been louder than their laughter, because it had been my silence, my choice, my power. And in the end, that power had saved us all. Now, I want to ask you something. Have you ever had to choose between keeping peace in your family and standing up for what's right? Have you ever walked away from people you love because staying would have meant losing yourself? It's one of the hardest decisions anyone can face. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story touched you, if it made you think about the power of standing firm in your truth, please hit that like button. And if you want to hear more stories about real people facing real challenges and finding their strength, subscribe to this channel. Share this story with someone who might need to hear it. Someone who's struggling to find their voice in a difficult family situation. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here. I hope it reminded you that you're stronger than you think, that truth matters, and that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away so you can come back whole. Take care of yourselves. Stand up for yourselves. And remember that family should lift you up, not tear you down. If they're tearing you down, you have every right to step back until they learn to do better. Until next time, may you find your strength, your truth, and your peace.